Hello there, Malcolm Macmillan here from Macmillan Centre for Learning. One of the reasons that I started doing these videos is to try to make concepts more accessible to people who may struggle to understand why life happens in the way it does. Life is quite complicated, people are quite complicated, and I don't have all the answers, but I wanted to share some of the ideas that have helped me in my daily life, as well as ideas that I've used with students when I've been teaching them on HNC, social services, social care as it used to be, to understand the people around them, to understand why people might behave in the way that they do, to understand why I behave in the way that I do, how I relate to my family, how I understand my family, how I understand myself. And I always believe that a person should start with yourself. I always say this to my students: practice on yourself before you practice on others. And so I encourage people to look at concepts and theories to understand why life happens the way it is. And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is the work of George Herbert Mead. He is a sociologist, and I'm not going to go into any details about all his work, and I recognise that there may be more current theorists, there may be critiques of theory, and I totally understand that. I have no problem with that, but I use different parts of different theories just to understand certain situations. And if you find that this helps you, then great. That's the whole point of it. It might help you in your personal life, but also it might help you to understand people that you work with, if you're working within a people-based industry, or if you work within a team, just to understand why they may behave in the way that they do. Now, George Herbert Mead speaks about the concept of self. I know that the self is something that's been discussed over and over again since the 80s. I've come through so many changes in the decades that I've lived about what self-identity is, and how we should understand each other, and ourselves. And I believe that George Herbert Mead's concept of self helps me to understand my thinking while I interact with others and when they interact with me. He speaks about the self being broken into two main parts: the me and the I. I like to break it down into clear terms of me thinks and I do. So what that really means is that the me part is a part of my brain where a narrative starts off, and if you've watched any of my other stuff, find I have plenty of narratives going on inside this cranium of mine. The narrative within my mind starts making assumptions about what people think about me as I engage with them, as I interact with them. I start making assumptions about their view of me, even as I'm making this video. When I scratched my eye, what are people going to think about? Is it unprofessional? Is it just me waffling on? When I pause and I stammer, which I do sometimes do, are people thinking, well, he should have cut that out of this? And so all these assumptions run through all of our minds. Whenever we're interacting with people, whenever we're in different situations, we start thinking about what that person looking at us, staring straight at us, is thinking about us. And when we make those assumptions, we are then presented with choices as to how we respond. And that's where the I comes in. So I respond by acting in a certain way. Now, depending on your character and depending on your life circumstances, you may act in various ways. Some people, if they make an assumption that somebody is engaging with them in an offensive manner, they may respond being offensive themselves in order to stop the offensive behaviour they perceive is coming towards them. Some people, if they believe somebody is offensive or being offensive towards them. They may go into flight or fight mode, and they may leave the environment. They may run, they may defend themselves, they may behave in ways that demonstrates that what you are doing is hurting me. And so we need to recognize that when we are in critical moments, we will respond based on the assumptions that we are making about other people. Now, this could also apply to when people are being kind, compassionate, caring towards us. If you have never experienced kindness, if you have never experienced honest compassion, then to receive honest compassion can be quite challenging. I say this to my students who work with young people in secure accommodation or in residential childcare, where a young person might come from a background where the only time somebody was really kind to them, it was when that adult or that other young person was wanting something from them in an abusive kind of context. And so therefore, when they see kindness coming from carers, from people who are trying to support them and look after them, their response can be to resist that kindness because they don't trust the person demonstrating that kindness. And we can all be like that. You don't have to have gone through significant trauma to experience that. We can all have life events that lead us to questioning the kindness of others. Not that you expect them to be abusive, but you question if they're really being kind. What are their motives behaving like that towards you? Because the assumption you make is that people are unkind, people may be abusive, people may just want from you things that you don't want to give them. And so I want you to think about how your self is made up. When you make assumptions about what people think about you, how are you responding? Is it working for you? It might be that your response is something that is positive. It is working for you in your life. So I'm not being critical of you having specific responses. You might need certain responses to stay safe. But you may also consider, are there any other responses that may enhance your daily life, enhance your relationships? Because if we all made negative assumptions about everybody, then the responses that we make will lead to further assumptions being made by you and by them. And that's an important part. When we think about George Herbert Mead, we mustn't forget that the other person is also making assumptions about what you're thinking about them. And they are responding in a manner that works for them. And I think that in a society, we need people to make assumptions that are more effective for society to function better, so that the responses are more considerate and kind. So whether you work in social care, health care, or any other people-based environment, or work within a team, consider why somebody is making those actions in and around or towards you, and how am I responding to that? So I hope that helps you. Let me know if you need any other discussion about this.